Welcome to Bench to Bedside, a weekly series of live conversations about recent advances in cancer, from the research bench to treatment at the patient's bedside. And now, your host and the director of the University of Kansas Cancer Center, Dr. Roy Jensen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Roy Jensen. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Bench to Bedside. With me today is Dr. Shrikant Anant, KU Medical Center's Chair of Cancer Biology, and also the KU Cancer Center's Associate Director for Basic Science. In addition, Dr. John Kim, a physician with the University of Kansas Health System's Integrative Health Division, is joining us today. And we're going to be discussing the concept of food is medicine and how eating certain foods can have a positive impact on your health. In addition, we will hear about exciting research being conducted at the KU Cancer Center that looks how we can extract specific compounds from healthy foods and use them to treat and prevent diseases such as diabetes and cancer. Dr. Anant, can you tell us about the research in your lab, which is conducting investigations on natural compounds such as turmeric, bitter melon, and saffron, and how they have the ability to potentially prevent or treat cancer? And then also give us a little bit of an idea about where did this idea originate?
Fantastic question. So both in Indian and in Chinese traditional medicine, it is thought that food is the best medicine, and that if you take food that are appropriate for certain conditions, that you can actually get better. So all of this is originated from these two systems of medicine. And they date back like thousands of years. So if you think about allopathy or the modern medicine, it's only about 1,000 years old. But this we're talking about is 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years old. So the three that you talked about, turmeric, bitter melon, and saffron, they came from these systems of medicine. So turmeric is considered to be a panacea. It's a root. So a root from a plant, if you think about a plant, how does this happen? Why do these plants have so much of fantastic anti-inflammation, anti-cancer properties? Because a plant cannot run away from its problems, okay? We are really parasites. We have actually taken what they're making for themselves to protect themselves. So if you think about a plant, it is stuck in the ground. You have rain, you have acid rain, they have to protect against those elements. You even have to think about dog going and peeing on them. And that has got acids in them. So you have to protect from that. So the ground has bacteria, it's got bugs, it's got critters. All of these had, so they have to make sure that the roots don't get eaten up. So they make all these fantastic compounds to protect from those things, and viruses and things like that affect plants. So the same thing applies to us. So when we eat these vegetables, they're really good for us. One, they don't cause any problems. You're not eating too much of it. And two, they have these medicinal properties which protect from our gut getting inflamed or if they get cancer. Mm-hmm. That's why the old systems of medicines of Indian, Chinese, the Aleutians in Alaska, Middle Eastern, the traditional, the Native Americans, each one of us have systems of medicines that they were practicing, which go thousands of years back. And they all came from fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. That's why it's good. Mm-hmm. So we've done a lot of work on turmeric. And we've also been working on bitter melon. So turmeric, I told you, plays a fantastic role in colon cancer prevention. Bitter melon is in the Indian systems of medicine, as well as in traditional Chinese medicine, is thought to play an excellent role inhibition of diabetes-related symptoms, sugar problems. Okay, so but then what we found in the lab is we started asking, since pancreatic cancer is becoming a big problem in this country right now, that a person who gets pancreatic cancer dies within 6 months, that the survival is so low, we said, will it also protect against cancer? So we were the first to show that an extract from this plant, that's fruit, bitter melon fruit, can actually protect. So then the next question was, how does it do it? So then we said, are there specific molecules, protein or a compound or a drug that is being made by the fruit that's protecting us. And so we've gone on to find 2 compounds like that. And now we are trying to develop that into a medicine so that we can actually make pills and give it. And that's where Dr. Kim and I are going to be working together to be able to develop that and take it to the clinic. And the third one was saffron. Saffron was actually originally identified in Middle Eastern as a fantastic anti-cancer properties, anti-inflammation properties, antibacterial properties. It really protected if you had an infection. That's how it started. It's the most expensive spice or a herb that you can get. It's the flowers have petals, and they take those and they string them out and they process them so that they become saffron. That's why it's very expensive. And so we've also identified 2 compounds in our group, and we've actually gotten a patent on it, and we are getting ready to move it towards getting it to the clinic.
So supplements that contain compounds such as turmeric have become very popular, as both of you know. So in terms of the properties of these supplements, how are these extracts really different from what you're researching in the lab?
So we don't know how they make the supplements. First and foremost, you talked about turmeric. So first and foremost, there are about 1,000 varieties of turmeric around the world, and people don't realize that. You think there's all of them are turmeric. It's not. Remember I told you we found an active compound in the turmeric. Some parts of the world where this turmeric grows, that turmeric has a lot more of that compound than other parts of the world. So a ground that's very arid, that seems to make more because it's much more difficult for the plant to grow. So they have to adapt to that condition. So they make more of these things. So we don't know where the supplement manufacturer got the original product from. And if it was not grown properly under the right conditions, then the root does not have the right mix of the compounds that are required to help us against the diseases that we encounter, infection, inflammation, and cancer. So we need to know where it came from, and we don't have a good agency that that can monitor where these different extracts have come from. So a same turmeric from 10 different sources may not be equal, and that's where the problem is. We are not there yet. The government is working on it. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is looking at it. It is not something that is regulated by the Federal Drug Administration. It's not a drug, and that's where we are working. The government is working to understand how to go about regulating extract to extract, a capsule to a capsule to a capsule dietary supplement.
So that's really interesting. So tell me about the work that's going on in the KU Cancer Center to move your findings into clinical trials.
And we are actually taking the lead in the country to try to move natural products to the clinic for 2 very simple reasons. One, we have all the expertise to do it. We have people like my group that knows how to find the compounds and understand how it works in cells and in animals. We have people like Dr. Kim who are fantastic in doing clinical trials, understanding what happens if you give it to a patient, monitor the patients, make sure everything goes well. And then between us, there's another group that is important in taking what we have discovered, making the compound in the right setting, so that the manufacturing is good, there's no other bad ingredients that could be bad for us, mixing into it so they make good quality material, make those capsules, and then test them in the animals to ensure that that works. So that's called preclinical research. So we do basic discovery research, there's a preclinical research, and then there's clinical research. So there's a second component that's missing between us here, but we have a fantastic group that does that as well. So we are in that phase right now. So we have discovered a few compounds. We are now working with this group to try to build the portfolio so that we can go to our federal agencies that will then allow us to say, okay, you've done all the right things, we can take it to the clinic. And then, Dr. Kim, you can talk about what you do, which is then you write an IRB, a protocol,
IRB,
yeah, so that they can get the clearance and have the oversight to make sure that all the right things are being done when we're giving it to the humans.
So do you want to talk about that side of the process?
Well, in KU Integrative Health, Integrative Oncology program is addresses that issue, because in treating patients with cancer, everything should be evidence based, and it should be driven by evidence. And what I have been doing and recently published a paper is looking at all the available evidence of using turmeric or curcumin in treating patients with end-stage cancer who are being treated with chemotherapy. So an adage is that if patients are on chemotherapy, you try to not give them any kind of supplements in general. A question arose from Dr. Weil's group, is that really true? So, and everyone knows that's true. I said, well, everyone knows, sometimes no one knows. So I started doing literature search, and lo and behold, I found a lot of researchers like Dr. Anant, like Dr. Agarwal in MD Anderson, that has done a number of very interesting studies that show effectiveness in what we call, in these two trials that Dr. Anand was talking about. What I was interested in the third phase, or the clinical trials. And what I have found is that at this time, that this whole field is a bit limited. And part of the problem that we're facing is that curcumin is not very soluble in water. And so some groups use black pepper to overcome it. Some groups use nanotechnology to try to overcome it. And right now I can say that there's a group that in New Jersey that is, most of these trials are using their compound. And so in my clinical practice, that's what I use. And most of the practice of use of supplements are on for pain, inflammation, but not on cancer patients, because the results of these preliminary showed that they are safe up to 8 grams a day. But the issue is that they do not seem to prolong the life of the patients. And there's one exception that looks especially interesting, is what Dr. Anant mentioned in colorectal cancer, in prevention aspects of it. So, and where I get involved is, it's a bit tricky because of the amount of the research is not very a lot, and now it's showing that it's safe but negative, non-beneficial results. So I share with patients, because I know that about 80% of patients that are in active cancer treatment will take supplement. They just simply don't tell their oncologists, like Dr. Jensen. They're, I think, a bit scared or intimidated. So, and the second thing is that these people don't even ask experts like me or other experts. They just take what neighbor says is good for them, or their loved one says is good for them. And I think that to keep it safer and more effective, what we're doing at KU is incredibly important.
So if you're just joining us, we're here with Dr. Shrikant Anant and Dr. John Kim, and we're talking about the concept of food is medicine. Please remember to share this link with people you think might benefit from our discussion. Use the hashtag #BenchToBedside. Dr. Anant, you were saying that you wanted to add something to Dr. Kim's?
A couple of things that Dr. Kim said that really nailed 2 points. One is, a lot of patients who have cancer are quietly taking supplements and not talking to the physician. In part because physicians sometimes admonish them. And so we need to teach our physicians that they shouldn't do it. But that's not the real reason. They don't even think about it. So I go out and talk about the research we are doing in our natural products. And many of them have come up to me and they'll say, oh, Dr. Anand, this is fantastic. Where can I get bitter melon? Or where can I get this curcumin that you're talking about from turmeric? What can we do about this? And every time I tell them, hey, listen, yes, we're doing this and this is all fantastic, but your condition might be very unique. I'll tell you what, Why am I telling you this? Is because sometimes a natural product might actually help the drugs that you're taking, but sometimes it might actually completely knock it off. So you really need to know whether it works or not works, and I don't know everything about your treatment plan. So I think if you go tell your physician that you met with this person, Dr. Anant was talking about it, he told me to come and talk to you, this might be a very important public message that we need to send to all our patients or and caregivers, everybody, that I think it's very good to talk to the physician about what you've heard. Is there any natural product supplement that I can take? Will it hurt me? Will it help me? And I think that's something that we should do. And so it's something that you mentioned really caught my attention because I have been doing this, but I forgot to talk about this, so you brought that up.
So Dr. Kim, in your food is medicine discussions with patients, what foods or types of foods do you generally encourage patients to cut back on?
So most of the data that we go by is prevention data, because there's not a lot of interventional data using food. Mm-hmm. So in prevention data, we do know that mostly plant-based diet is what we recommend, and to avoid processed meat, to avoid red meat. In general, I recommend patients to consider plant-based food. I think that with lots of vegetables, my emphasis is less on fruit, but more on vegetable because of the possible sugar content issues.
Mm-hmm. You know, my philosophy is all things in moderation, mm-hmm. including moderation. So mm-hmm. I supplement my vegetable diet with Gates Barbecue. But other than that, I believe in exactly what you're saying. So tell me a little bit about the potential benefits of choosing organic produce, meat, and dairy.
So I think that there was recently a news article quoting a study that estimates the protective value at about 25%. And I think that this comes from what we already know, that potential issues with what people are exposed in terms of pesticides and herbicides. Mm-hmm. And what I tell my patient is that organic when you can, otherwise you can wash the vegetables very well, even with detergent, rinse them several times is another way. And what I also share with them is the notion that there's going to be differential risk. So what I mean by this is that when you eat fat, for example, you absolutely want to go organic. If you're eating meat, organic I think is preferable. The issue is the concentration. Each level that the pollutants get concentrated into fat, and then that fat is then consumed by consumers. So organic when you can, but when you're eating meat and fat, dairy, organic definitely.
But isn't there also data out there saying that in the past they used to give bovine growth hormone to all these the cows, and so then the growth hormone can get into the meat, mm-hmm. and then that can also affect. So when you do organic, mm-hmm. am I correct or?
The organic, in theory, should be free of that, and you can look for specific labels for that. Yeah. And another thing is that the biochemical content of egg that looks exactly the same, depending on what they ate, will be tremendously different. So some of them will have high omega-3 fatty acids, or the omega-3, omega-6 ratio, which is very important for inflammation, will be tilted one way or the other. So the best eggs would be where the chicken are roaming, eating natural things that they should be eating, like bugs, and exercising. And probably the worst way is that we're controlling their diet, they cannot move, and as a result, we get to eat the result of that.
So free-range chickens are good,
yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. And eggs from free-range chicken.
So are there certain foods that are particularly helpful for people undergoing traditional cancer treatment?
So for that, what I share with patients is a little different in an active chemotherapy setting. The thing that we don't want to see is patients losing weight, and we don't want to see patients losing muscle mass, because that after a while there is a negative outcome of that. So when patients say, I want this food, and I think that's a little bit of art of medicine, where we talk with patients and say if they are willing to eat some food but not particularly healthy, I will say in this case, let them eat what they need to eat to keep the weight so that they can complete the therapy.
Also in moderation.
Yeah.
So even if you're going to eat meat, although you just heard that meat may not be good for you, even if you're eating meat, if you eat it in moderation, just don't eat a quarter pounder or a half pounder, just eat a couple of bites.
And grass-fed beef and grass-fed meat seems to have more omega-3 fatty acids and less omega-6 fatty acids, which is better for people.
Okay. So medicinal mushrooms have long played a critically important role in traditional Chinese medicine. What role do they have in cancer prevention or potentially cancer treatment?
So it's really interesting topic, because my mentor, Dr. Andrew Weil, is really crazy about mushrooms, and I visited his colleague in Washington, Paul Stamets, who's considered to be world expert in mushrooms and medicinal mushrooms. And there are entire books written on immune modulation of our immune system by mushrooms. And it's very interesting and a little scary, because some of this is that the medicinal mushrooms may initially cause a bit of immune suppression, followed by the immune stimulation. So depending on how you're timing this, is important. And then the other part is that it is really important that you know the detail, because how did the mushroom grow is really important. What did the mushroom eat, get its nutrients from, and is it organic, who processed it, and then in Chinese medicine is different from the way we do our Western medicine, is that the Chinese herb is usually a combination of about 12 or so different herbs. And one herb, one plant, has hundreds, maybe even thousands of phytochemicals. So when you have this kind of permutation, it's really difficult to know what is doing what. But in this case, because the science has not yet definitively shown what to do, what I recommend is that if their oncologist is okay with patient taking medicinal mushroom, I will make a combination out of them. And there is a combination that's commercially available. I will use that, or I will mix different kind of herbs based on what kind of cancer they have. No studies to prove they work, but there's an expert consensus. So for example, if you go to MD Anderson, MSK, or KU, Integrative Oncology, they all get similar recommendations on medicinal mushrooms, which is it won't cure cancer, but if patient is interested in improving their immune status, then we use it very cautiously.
So as we approach the end of today's Bench to Bedside session, and this is for both Dr. Anant and Dr. Kim, what are the key takeaways that you would like to leave with our Facebook community?
Talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor, talk to your doctor, talk to your doctor. If you want to take something that's natural, that is not a prescribed medicine, it's always good to ask your physician, your doctor, the nurse practitioners. They will all know what you're having, and if they don't, they will know whom to consult and get back to you. That is my first takeaway. Food is the best medicine, obviously. And after your treatment too, for preventing recurrence or for having a good quality of life, food is going to be important. Talking to physicians like Dr. Kim, who are in integrative sciences, integrative health, they can actually help you design the right type of food that you should be eating to have a great life after you're cured.
And Dr. Kim?
I think Dr. Anant is absolutely right that food has to be the basis of medicine. There are studies that show they cannot, even when you use food in supplement form, they cannot get the same results. So I think the food is important, and talk to your oncologist, and if oncologist is agreeable, seek out integrative oncology specialists, because recently a professional organization for oncologists has endorsed evidence-based approach to integrative oncology, which we practice here in KU Integrative Health.
All right. Well, thank you, both Dr. Anant and Dr. Kim. That's it for today. For more information on Dr. Anant's research, please visit kucancercenter.org. If you'd like to learn more about integrative health, please visit kansashealthsystem.com/integrative. We appreciate you joining us, and we invite you to tune in next week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. for Bench to Bedside. Thanks for watching.